Yeah, she's right there. Oh, mic's up. Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're back in session. Mr. Bentonhausen, sir, if you could give a report.
Yes, there's two items on the closed session agenda. The council had discussion on the first item and received direction. Concerning item CS1, concerning the public employment of the city manager, the council, on a motion from Stump, seconded by Paris 5-0, accepted the resignation of Bob Stockwell. And the council they accepted the resignation. His resignation will be effective as of 11:59 tonight, beginning tomorrow. The city council wishes to thank Bob Stockwell for his years of service as a city manager, not only here but in other cities, and wishes him success in his future endeavors. The city also, on a 5-0 vote, made by Stump and seconded by Councilmember Lisenovich, to appoint for a period of 3 months as interim city manager Anna Lynn. And that is all that I'm here to report.
Thank you very much, sir. And with that, it is now 6:14 in the evening. We're going into regular session for the council meeting, calling to order this. Would everybody please make sure that your cell phones are on vibrate and silent or off, please. And with that, if everybody would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening with our hearts filled with gratitude and sadness at the same time. We thank you for the service of a very faithful servant in Bob Stockwell, and we thank you for the service of Anna Lynn. We ask that the Holy Spirit would anoint this city, our city council, and our directors of each department to do the best job that you would have them do. Let the words of their mouth be the heart of your very soul. And may the Lord Jesus Christ touch each and every person that they may walk in the grace of an almighty God. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Council members Johnson,
Present.
Lisenovich,
Here.
Harris,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stump,
Here.
Mayor McGuire.
Here. Madam Clerk, any reports or late communications?
3 communications from J.M. Powers. First one received May 13th, serious flaws in mid-year budget review documented dated April 5th, 2019. Received May 13th, erroneous estimates distort city's 2018-19 budget for end of March 2019. And also received May 13th, important California city demographics as of May 1st, 2019.
Okay, thank you. Presentations. The first one, Chief Hurtado just advised me that the recognition of the animal shelter volunteers is going to have to be postponed because they could not make it tonight. So we'll go with the next one. You're up, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, public, tonight we're going to be swearing in our new officer for the department. And I'll ask Mutak and his family please join me up front. All right. Tonight, I'd like to swear in Officer Mutak. A little background. He's from the Antelope Valley. He served in the Army for 8 years, starting in 1992. Graduated the Rio Hondo Academy in 1998. He started his career in law enforcement as a Tulare County deputy. He's worked at Veterans Affairs Police and a variety of school resource officer positions throughout LA County. He's applied for our school resource officer, and I'm sure, as everyone knows, it's a hot topic, especially this week. He's been very busy, and we'll welcome him to our city. With him tonight, his wife Maria, Brittany's here, and Matthew and Brianna could not be here tonight. I also have Mom Teresita, Josefina. She's hiding in the back. Huh? Desiree and her husband Paul. He's hiding. Okay. So now for the good part. As a tradition, we ask the family member to help us place pin badge on our new officer. All right. And raise your right hand and repeat your oath of office. Repeat it after me. I state your name.
I, Benjamin Mutak,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear to defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
the duties upon about to enter.
Mayor, council, members of the public, I'd like to introduce Officer Mutak, California City Police Department. Mayor, we take 30 seconds. I know the media was looking
Yeah,
for
30 seconds for the photo shoot. Got it.
You're good? Okay. You're good? Done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up for presentation, Councilmember Johnson.
Okay, I'm always very, very proud of this. I'm very proud of the ability to recognize the young people in our community who make our community look good. I do receive the recommendations from the school But these children, this is not a character counts award from the school. This is a council award for these children being outstanding representatives of what we like to see in California City. So I'm very proud of every one of these kids. The first two I want to call up are Victoria Breckenridge and Saul Alvarez from RPU. Both of them, what they have to say is the same. They always choose kindness. They're good to other students, which sets a great example for what we like to see everywhere. Kindness goes a long way in the world, and I hope you never stop, and I hope you never forget, okay? I'm very proud of you two. From Hacienda Elementary School, I would like to call up Ryan Coleman. Okay, I'll wait on Ryan, but I will give the presentation for him. Ryan is respectful, focused, hardworking, and driven to succeed. Ryan's on-campus behavior and positive attitude serve as outstanding examples for the other students to follow. Also from Hacienda, I would like to call Gracie Annalie Abernathy. Yay! Aside from obviously looking beautiful, Gracie is trustworthy, fair, and honest. She has a deep understanding of what kind of person she wants to be. She sticks to her morals even when it would be easier to follow the crowd. She radiates positivity. We all need that, so very proud of you. For California City Middle School, Annette Foley. Annette is an extremely responsible, hardworking, well-liked by peers and staff. She is always kind, considerate, and helpful to others. She's a joy to have on campus, and I love to hear stuff like that. Also from CCMS, Mr. Joseph Healy. Wait, before I say anything, you must smile. This is a good thing you're getting. You have to smile for us. No smiles? Joseph is a great kid. He helps clean the CCMS cafeteria every day after lunch on his own. He is helpful in class, respectful to other students and staff, and a hard worker. He is a joy to have on campus. So thank you very much, Joseph. Smile. Okay. These two are particularly special. From California City High School, I would like to call up Jose Zaragoza and Christopher Sanchez. And I'm actually going to try not to cry because when I read this, it made me cry then. Jose and Christopher have long been stellar students at California City High School. They are athletes in multiple sports and great students. But here's the extra. This year, they have taken it to the next level by working with our severely handicapped students. Daily, they help their teacher by working closely with our severe students by tutoring, guiding, and making relationships with the students in a positive and caring way. Joseph and Christopher are Raven Way role models for all students on the CCHS campus. And you are absolutely what I love to represent our city. So thank you very much.
Things back there. You want to get them in line for me? Here.
Annalie was one of my students.
Oh.
I'm giving her a job well done.
Get them after I leave. No, you're all doing it already. All right. There you go. Okay. Now down, not up.
Thank you all so very much. Okay, now we're, any civic community organizations or announcements?
Ilona Eubank, we want to let you know that GAG has been busy, Gals Against Graffiti. We have taken care of over 13 graffitied sites, and we're very pleased that the fire department, code enforcement worked with us. And please keep giving us the tips, taking pictures, letting us know where these things are, and we'll get rid of them. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Any other civic community organization announcements?
Keith Middleton. I just wanted to mention one of our seniors will turn 100 this week. I can't remember her last name. First name is Rosita. I apologize for her last name. There'll be, what? Rosita Victoria. And should be celebrated at the Senior Center this week, tomorrow for the monthly birthday, and I think there's a birthday party for her Saturday at Senior Center as well.
Thank you, sir. Any other civic community organization announcements? None being there, going to consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered routine and non-controversial and will be approved by one motion if no member of the
Point of
council.
order, Mayor. You have a young lady that was raising her hand back
Oh.
there in the black tank tops, wanted to speak.
For, yeah, absolutely. For civic community organizations? Or are you,
Public business from the floor.
are you public business? Yeah. Let's go ahead.
Hi, my name is Melissa Delia. I'm speaking on behalf of Debbie Phones. She has a little something for me to read to you guys. There's a place in the park that for me holds incredible meaning. This place is somewhat out of the way, rather desolate. It sits behind the senior center. It resembles a dirt alleyway with chain link fence running the length on either side. If you start on the west end by the preschool and travel east down the alley, counting the fence posts to the 13th one, then at the 13th post stop. Take about 2 heel steps and you'll find the 13th one, or you'll find yourself standing on the spot my daughter's lifeless body was found, Devery Schiller. Devery Schiller's life ended there, and even though I know she's no longer there, I find myself taking some comfort in going there to just sit, listen to music, play on my device. To many, it would seem a very odd place to hang out if they don't know the story. On June 26, 2019, the 3rd anniversary of her death will come to pass. Like most families that have lost a loved one, our family observes that date a very significant one. And like most families, I want to do something to memorialize her. Some time ago, I asked a local craftsman and good friend of mine to make a bench. He did, and it's beautiful. I had the idea of placing it where she died. I was concerned about it getting destroyed, so I came up with the idea I call Booze Oasis. After talking to several people about helping, the plan was as follows. Instead of putting the bench in the alleyway, I'd like to put it on the other side of the fence for the folks at the senior center to use. I have someone willing to do a concrete pad, either in a square with diamonds imposed on it or a diamond-shaped pad for the bench to sit on. I have planned a simple pergola to go over the bench area that would be covered in something like faux ivy to add shade, possibly a couple of planters and low-maintenance plants. It would be a place for the seniors to sit should they want to come outside. Because accessibility would be limited, the concern for destruction would be lowered. I plan on doing a fundraiser for the project and participating in every aspect of its construction. I'm not asking for money from the city for this, only its blessing. I have gone other routes to get permission to do so, to no avail. So here we are today asking you for permission to build a sweet tribute to my daughter in honor of her 3rd anniversary of her passing. I know that with only 43 days left after the anniversary, or with only 43 days left until the anniversary, I'm really pushing the time. But I know it'll be worth it when it's done. One last note, if you don't already know this about me, I'll tell you, I don't do politics. That being said, I would like to thank everyone responsible for the hiring of the new detective, Tim O'Quinn, for raising the reward for all 8 cases, and for being part of the balloon release memorial held on April 11th. It's nice to have the support of the town, and it's nice to feel hope again.
Thank you very much. Ms. City Manager, would you please contact the Senior Center and see if we can make arrangements to make that happen? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. All right, so now we are consent calendar. All items are on the consent calendar are considered routine and non-controversial and will be approved in one motion if no member of the council, staff, or public wishes to comment or ask questions. Public comments, please limit them to 3 minutes. Roll call vote is required. CC1, approval check register, city check registry dated through 5/8/19. CC2, approved council minutes 8/14/18, 4/9/19, and 4/29/19. CC3, adopt a resolution number 519-2785 of the City Council of the City of California City, amending the 2019-2020 budget to incorporate a list of projects funded by SB1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act. Those are the 3. Does anybody have any questions dealing with CC 1, 2, or 3? Hang on, you'll need to come up to the, okay.
On CC1, I don't have a specific check. Al Hudson, I don't have the specific check number on CC1, but it looks like the engineers that were hired are still receiving the same amounts of money that Helt Engineering did. So we just have a Helt with another name under it. And CC3, in the supporting documentation, it says that the public was involved in the selection of the public work and the public works projects. There's nothing further from the truth. This is nothing but another plat lie. So if we're going to go forward on it, let's make that correction. Let's table this and have public input on it like is required under SB1. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Did you have a question? Please come up. Yes.
Well, the report's new to me. There's a deadline to be able to submit it again. We do not have the report of where they want to do the road repairs yet. They suggested it in the report. If we could pass the resolution so we can go for more funding, and I'll commit to coming back to you guys with a full report that's accurate.
With current
numbers.
Current numbers.
And if we need to get public input, we'll do that as well. But we do need direction to turn it in tomorrow for more funding.
If we can answer
Sure.
his question, what all this deals with, what the if we can direct, just answer this one question for him, what this deals with.
Well, I was kind of curious if you could tell me where these road repairs are going to take place.
I can. Well, the proposed repairs are going to
Okay.
be by Aspen Avenue and Bay Avenue,
Okay,
Catalpa Avenue and 90th Street,
okay,
Lasky Street and Aspen Avenue,
all right,
Bay Avenue and Catalpa Avenue, Eucalyptus Avenue, Fir Avenue, Holly and Grapewood, Dogwood Avenue, Catalpa and Hickory,
Okay,
Aspen Avenue and Bay Avenue,
thank you.
Bay and 82nd and 83rd, a few more, Xavier Avenue and Berry Street, Walpole Avenue and Kensington Street, Dogbane and Columbine, Isabella and 79th, Xavier, and I don't know the cross, it doesn't state the cross sections, oh, between 89th and 94th Street. Walpole Drive between 89th Street and 94th Street. 89th Street between North Loop and Xavier Avenue. Corwin, St. Street, and Fuchsia Avenue. Those are the proposed, but we can.
Does this consist of like new asphalt? Is that what it is? Repaving or what?
Repairs and repaving.
Repairs and repaving. Each,
All of the above, yeah.
yeah, it's going to depend on what the circumstances
I can
are.
give him this.
I think he just got
I
it
think this
from.
is probably
Okay.
gonna
So-
explain a lot to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had another question too, if I may. Do you know is this college gonna be looked at again as far as this research center for the marijuana?
That hasn't been brought up yet. So
Okay.
there was a conversation that occurred on that.
All right,
But we haven't heard anything back from the college yet.
all right, I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions dealing with CC 1, 2, or 3?
Good evening, Mary Whitty speaking. It has to do with the road repairs. Is there a road from on Poppy, from North Loop to Nevaeh in front of the high school?
That is not in the proposed repairs for SB1 from Public Works Director Platt. I do know that, speaking to the streets, though, that's on their agenda to be doing repairs on.
Okay, that was the
street-
big issue,
yeah.
been the issue for the longest, and I don't know
Yeah.
why he didn't put it on there. And with these repairs, I understand it's repairs and laying new asphalt, but some of these roads need not more potholes filled. They actually need to be, scraped up and laid back down again. So it's that part of the repairs when they lay down the asphalt,
Yeah, they'll be doing potholes.
that
and-
they'll be scraping up some of the roads because Poppy is through.
I don't want to speak to that too much, because I need to have them answer that from that
Okay.
department. But I know that they're excited about doing more repairs and using SB1 properly now.
Okay, because the potholes, they'll fill them, and then they'll return back to potholes. They're really bad. It's a number of other streets that I didn't hear, but I'll just, make a list
Talk
and bring it to you.
Let the mayor know, and he can direct me to
Yeah, we
get the
can,
road
we
report.
can sit there. This is going to continue on because we need to do a couple things dealing with this, so then we can bring the public in and maybe jockey that list around a little bit.
Okay,
Okay, but yeah, this is going to return.
all right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns dealing with CC 1, 2, or 3? All right. Sir.
I saw the estimates and I had a little hard time understanding them. Am I to believe that we're actually thinking we're going to get all of these streets done in this project? $500,000?
I don't think numbers are right.
I know the function of SB1, but Craig Platt put this together, so I need to talk to the roads, the streets department
Okay.
about that.
All right.
And also with Diego to see what funds we really do have. And so what I commit to doing is bringing back the proper projected street repairs and the right numbers.
We do have an estimated amount for funds.
Microphone, please.
We do have an estimated amount of what the funds are that we've received to date. So I will touch base with interim city manager Lynn, and Anna Lynn, excuse me, and we'll come back with a better detailed report on that.
Yeah, we all want this, all of us, especially, well, my street isn't on there, but I have cracks in it, but no problem with that. I can live with that. There are people worse. But one important thing is, and I talked to Mr. Ibanez this week I think it was Monday, yesterday. And so what we need to do is get a very accurate assessment of what we have, and he's working on that, because I know, City Manager Lynn, you're trying to, you know, reconcile and find out exactly what we have, and that's what we really need to do. So,
Anybody else have any questions from up here at the council?
I make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we.
Real quick, did you have any other questions? Okay. And Dr. Nick, do you have any other questions?
I have comments, but not questions.
Okay, do you want to make,
We can do that after
Okay.
the motion, I think.
okay. Do you have any questions? Sir?
I can hold a motion if you want, or you want me to.
Okay, then I guess I would concur with Al's question about BHT engineering, $48,000 in a month. I think we need to have some sort of report come with those bills to us, so we can actually see whether that is work supporting federal funds, you know, or federal state funds or not, or whether this is plan checks, or what in the world they're charging us for, because
Yeah, because one of my concerns, I was looking at SDRs,
Well, we have no
and I
idea.
wanted to find out if those were pass-throughs. In other words, if the companies are flipping the bill for those. Okay.
So we'd like to see that. In the consent calendar, and I'm not talking about, I'm talking about that we need to pay the bill, but I'm not talking about walking away from them. We have a total of legal fees of $52,648.50. Our primary attorney, I think, is at somewhere upwards of $650,000 this year. The budget for the budget in this year was $350,000. So the one attorney has gotten is $300,000 over what we budgeted for legal fees, and we have two other attorneys making claims in this particular consent calendar. We need to be looking at those a little bit more cautiously and carefully, and trying to figure out a strategy to cope with out of sight legal costs to the city. Because sooner or later we have to recognize that if we're paying it for legal fees, we're not going to be able to put it in streets. We're not going to be able to put it into projects that might otherwise enhance our community. This is literally just protecting us from a lawsuit. But anyway, those were just comments prior to making the vote.
So do you have a comments or a motion? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, my motion is that we approve items CC 1 through CC 3.
Okay,
And with the
caveat.
caveat that we spoke to the city manager about and the finance director.
That we get a very detailed, money-wise, what we've got and what we can do, and then we can make the arrangements to bring it to the public and let the public have their say-so.
And one more caveat, I'll add this to it, if the council wants me to remove it, but for, as far as, from the engineering costs that we incur, we would like to see some fidelity as far as what the charges are for, if you could send that to the council prior to, the meeting, and also for, possibly for legal fees also, because I think that if we have more fidelity on that, we can have a better understanding of what's going on with the city's money. So that was my motion, and
Okay, we have a motion on the table, looking for a second.
Second that motion.
We got a first and second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Johnson? Yes. Lissinovich?
Yes.
Paris?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Stump?
yes.
Mayor McGuire?
Yes, thank you. New business 1. Let me get to it. Shot it. Okay, new business one, OHV grants, Chief Hurtado and Aaron Sanders.
Karen will be doing tonight's presentation.
No guts, no glory.
She's well more knowledgeable in this area.
And I apologize, I'm trying to get the PowerPoint to come back up. I had it up earlier. Oh, here, it's on its way.
Hit one of the switches.
Is that better?
That's much better, thank you.
So I've created a PowerPoint for you. I provided the staff report regarding the resolution that we need to proceed with the OHMVR division grant applications. The grants are not final. These are preliminary applications. We have 5 applications this year, one for ground operations, of course, law enforcement, education and safety, development and planning. The public comment period is over. I received the comments from the OHMVR division this past week, and I'm working on finalizing the grants for their final application submission the first week in June. So that being said, I can't change anything in the grants at this point in time except for what has been made in public comment, which we did get a couple of public comments, and then based on what the OHMVR division has asked me to address in their comments. The comments that we get from the OHMVR division typically are improvements on explanation, or if there are errors that they find, then we can make those changes. Otherwise, I can't make any changes to the grants at this point. What I have is just basically a summary of what we do. California City has been receiving grants since 1971. The very first grant that was applied for by the city was a law enforcement grant under the California Council on Criminal Justice. I don't think that agency even exists anymore. We've had applications for clean water, solid waste management, transportation, such as the one for the Dial-A-Ride program in 1994, parks improvement, airport planning and capital improvement, many others. The city has received state and federal grants as well as the CDBG grants over the years. An improvement grant for Boraxville Park was brought before council in 2001, and the very first off-highway motorized vehicle recreation grant was applied for in 2003, and we have applied for them every year since. The state of California has the green sticker, red sticker funds in what we refer to as a trust fund. That money is made available to agencies, municipalities, places like the Bureau of Land Management, the Forest Service, Kern County, Imperial County, other city parks departments, and nonprofit groups such as Friends of Jawbone, Friends of El Mirage. Of course, I recognize that our OHV recreation area is kind of a hot topic, a hot point. We have people who are for it and understand it, and we have people in the city who don't like it, but fortunately or unfortunately, the area is used by OHVers, campers, and riders, and has been historically for a very long time. And we get visitors of all ages, too. I want to point that out. I don't know how well you can see the picture, but that's Sergeant Blanton, back actually a couple of years ago, visiting with a rider who brought in his child. And we have lots of kids that come with their families to California City to learn to ride because it's easy. It doesn't have a lot of canyons and gnarly hill climbs, so it's a good place to teach children how to ride, and it's a good place for them to learn about the desert, learn about camping, learn about the natural world. We have our permit program, which is not really connected to the grants program at all. It does help us to provide match for the grants where we have to have some sort of hard money match. Just as an example, for the ground operations grant, I'm able to use the heavy equipment daily rental rate, and this is all allowed by the state regulations. For instance, a motor grader costs about $800 a day to rent. We're allowed to tap into that. The city also does grader work out in the SDI tracks. That's part of the OHV recreation area, and OHVers do take advantage of it. So the work that the city does, that Public Works does in the OHV, in the SDI tracks, we're allowed to capture that daily rental rate. I have yet to use the personnel cost or the fuel cost. Just the rental rate on the heavy equipment helps us to meet the match on the ground operations grant. So the permit program is helpful for the grants such as development and law enforcement and safety and education. This slide basically is a recap. This year we're applying for law enforcement, education and safety, ground operations and development, and we're also applying for a planning grant because we would like to have an updated RV dump station in the OHV recreation area. The law enforcement grant allows the city to properly respond to calls for assistance in the OHV area or the second community. In spite of the city's population and geographical makeup, we are still obligated by law to respond to any and all emergencies within the city limits. The OHMVR Division grant for law enforcement allows us to respond with reduced cost to the city. The project objective for the law enforcement grant is to patrol. We actually can obtain money for barrier installation and public safety signage. Sometimes maps, helps us with our search and rescue, and the maintenance of and or purchase of equipment directly related to law enforcement. I'm not asking for any equipment in this year's law enforcement grant, just some minor things like radio antennas and batteries and stuff like that. Typically, in the OHV recreation area, we have one officer who is a paid police officer who mans the area under usual circumstances. During heavy use times, there might be other officers posted at Boraxville Park. These additional officers may work on an overtime basis, and this is typical for law enforcement agencies who get the OHV grant money. They're not paid as a OHV safety officer per se, but they're officers who are working an overtime basis. And we tap into that usually during heavy use times like Thanksgiving, New Year's, President's Day, spring break, Easter. And on occasion, we have other special events in the OHV recreation area, such as Bequinox. We have another group that comes to the OHV recreation area, the California Historical Society. They're a World War II reenactment group. We have bird dog field trials that take place out in the Camp H area. Those particular events don't really take law enforcement, but we have them, if we have need for those events to be covered by law enforcement, the OHV grants help to pay for that. The grant pays for staffing. A senior officer is paid to coordinate and manage the patrols and year-round OHV events and any legal issues. And then one full-time officer is tapped at 50% of his or her time in the OHV response area for OHV time. Other personnel paid by the grant include information clerks. Those are typically dispatchers. Then we have other emergency personnel that help us out. Sometimes the fire department steps in. They don't get any of our grant money, but they have to make their own grant applications. And then our part-time park aides help with maps, information, traffic control during heavy use times. They're actually out on the parking lot at Boraxville directing traffic and trying to keep it running as smoothly as possible. I don't want to forget our volunteers. The Desert Incident Response Team, of course, they are volunteers. They are not paid, but they do come out and help the sworn law enforcement officers. Typically, they'll go out and do what we call an education stop. They'll go to campsites and distribute maps and other safety information and answer questions that people have about how do I get to Randsburg, how do I get to Jawbone, what's the deal with the new helmet laws for side-by-sides. A lot of our dirt volunteers are trained in first aid. We do search and rescue training, and we also make sure that the dirt volunteers know how to land a helicopter on the ground, not in the air. So there we have a helicopter. So the law enforcement grant includes airtime. We always ask for airtime to lease a helicopter and lease a pilot and pay for the fuel for a helicopter to help us out with patrols, especially New Year's and Thanksgiving, because that's when we have so many people out there. We can get medical supplies that are needed to help the medical walk-in medicals that we have, some of the crashes and so forth that happen out in the field. We ask for safety boots because you can imagine that the desert terrain is pretty hard on a person. We get load-bearing vests, cold weather gear, high visibility vests and jackets, so that everyone's decked out appropriately. Of course, some of the indirect costs include office supplies. Don't spend very much money on that, but we do have to pay for that. Batteries, that sort of thing. And then, of course, I already talked about placing the signage for traffic control and, traffic control and education. Ground operations grant. This one is a big one. I'm not asking for as much this year simply because we've been working really hard the last 3 or 4 years in doing some erosion control projects. We're working on the last big one right now. This takes articulated concrete and a lot of work to make sure that the washes are passable. We have to keep the routes open for emergency services vehicles such as police cars, police vehicles, and fire trucks. The ground operations grant allows us to purchase janitorial supplies and cleaning supplies for the restroom and shower facilities at Boraxville. We have staff who's paid for with ground operations, such as our full-time heavy equipment operator. We have 4 general maintenance workers who are employed for now. I don't think we're going to need all 4 of them beginning with the new grant because we've completed a lot of major projects in the last, like I said, last 3 or 4 years. So they'll be doing more maintenance than actual installation of new projects. So some of the things that are included in the ground operations grant include the dumpsters and the roll-off containers. We ask for extra ones during the heavy use times, so Waste Management will bring us the larger containers. They're usually filled, and I think that speaks to the way our visitors really truly do want to pack it in, pack it out, and not leave a mess in the desert. It's a benefit for us to have that. The water and electricity service for Boraxville Park is paid for out of the ground operations grant. Pest control, we work with the field crew, and that's the Farm Workers Institute of Education, Leadership, and Development. And you probably ask me, what do farm workers have to do with this? This is an adult continuation school that's here in California City. There's a couple of other locations. I think there's one in Tehachapi and possibly one in Bakersfield. They have created a conservation corps, and this conservation corps, the Conservation Corps members come to Boraxville on Mondays for about 32 weeks out of the riding season to help with projects. It gives us a few extra people to do work, and it gives them an opportunity to have work and learn some skills that otherwise they would not have. So that's where we get the farm workers from. So they're really not farm workers, but hey, we're in the desert. We get water supply parts, janitorial supplies, lumber, fasteners, decals, paddle markers, fence materials and reflectors, all of the things that we need so that we can maintain the area. Again, the ground operations grant gets fuel. We have the use of the track dozer crawler, a grader, a front end loader, The guys created a water trailer out of a water buffalo. A water truck is very expensive to rent and even more expensive to buy. We don't need one all the time, so they actually made a sprayer out of a water buffalo, and we have a utility Humvee that pulls that sprayer so we can keep the dust down in Boraxville Park and certain parts of trails that come into town when it gets really, really dusty at Thanksgiving. The grant also helps us pay for cutting edges, tires, and other miscellaneous items that we have to have in doing the work. It pays an indirect cost for grant administration, a few office supplies, and we also provide safety boots, glasses, high visibility vests, and gloves for the crew so that they can be safe while they're working. So I've applied for a development grant because we have a recreational trails program building. That RTP grant has a 12% match. Because the RTP grant is a federal grant, they allow us to use a state grant as match. So if all the stars align and we get the development grant and we can move forward with the RTP building, it's actually going to be a cost savings to the city because 12% of $800,000 approximately is a lot of money. But 25% of $100,000 is $25,000. So, like I said, if all the stars align and we're able to make this work, then it will get us the building, get it built out on the inside, and it will save us some money. I've applied for a planning grant for an RV dump station. Chief Hurtado had asked me to do this when I came on board in 2012. I finally said yes. There's a lot involved with the planning grant for an RV dump station. There's environmental and CEQA studies that have to be done, archaeological, habitat, soil, geological survey studies, civil engineering surveys. But the good thing about the planning grant is they're going to pay us to make the plan with the planning grant. And if we build it, great. If we don't, we still got the planning grant. So it's kind of a win-win for us. We'll be able to get the environmental stuff taken care of, and we'll be able to have a plan. So when we get all that done, then we can apply for a development grant to actually build an RV dump station. Well, we have to get the grant first. If we get the grant, we would sign the agreement October the 1st, and then we have 3 years actually on the planning grant to do that. So it's one of the longer term grants. Ground operations, law enforcement, first aid, education and safety are all 1-year grants, but development and planning are 3-year grants. Sure. And we'll make those findings available to the public. And also part of the planning grant is we will have public meetings. We're required to have public meetings to take public input on any planning grant. Okay? So do any of you have questions? Have I thoroughly confused you?
No. I just got one in reference, what was it, last year, the year before? We bought drones for search and rescue. Have those been used?
Yes, so we've done some training with them. We are learning more and more about drones. We got R2515 cleared through Edwards. That was our biggest hurdle, and we just cleared that.
Okay.
So now that that's done, we're able to get some training done, and this next holiday weekend, Memorial will probably be the first one we'll be ready to deploy those.
I just didn't want an F-35 smoke that thing out of the skies, you know.
Yeah, that won't happen.
That's an altitude restriction?
400.
400 feet?
Yeah.
Ground level to 400?
Yeah. AGL 400.
Questions I had. Anybody from the public have any questions? If not, we're bringing it back up here for a motion.
I just have one comment, and
Yes.
I've just become familiar with how difficult it is to do grant writing, and I think Ms. Sanders has done an outstanding job.
Definitely.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt the resolution 5192786 and all that it says on there. I make that motion.
I would second that motion.
Okay, we got a first, what, sir?
I'd just like to thank Karen for the work.
Yeah.
It's a voluminous amount of work here to bring this to Cal City. And it's something we can't avoid, obviously. They're here whether we like them or not, and we got to paint the best picture we can and use it as a way to promote our community. So thank you very much.
Having the grant actually allows us to manage those visitors. If we didn't have the grant, we'd still have to manage those visitors. But having the different grants that are available to us gives us the ammunition that we need to actually manage the area and make sure that the soil doesn't blow away and make sure that people aren't out there, running into ruts and gullies and that kind of thing.
I just got a squirrel moment question. Did you ever get your assistant yet?
For permits?
Yeah, for,
Yes, yes. And-
excellent.
Yeah, and she's plowing through everything, and I believe you should have received some reports recently.
I haven't received anything yet. So, okay, you've got it? Okay, then, okay, thank you. So we've got a first and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Listinovich?
Yes.
Paris?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Stump?
Yes.
Mayor McGuire?
Yes. NB2, Firefighters Association Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, Human Resources Director Johnson.
Hello. Okay, it's on.
You're on.
Mayor and City Council members, this is a report for the Fire Department MOU. We've already, as you know, gone through the Police Department and the miscellaneous. So the City and Fire Employees Association entered into a three-year memorandum of understanding, which have now expired. The Miscellaneous and Police Association were approved by the Council on March 26, 2019. This staff report is presented for the Fire Association only, and given the financial uncertainty of the parcel tax votes, the parties, city and negotiations are now completed, and the city's negotiators representing the City Council and the union have reached tentative agreement on the successor MOU contingent upon final City Council approval. The MOU is for 3 years and will provide the following increases in wages. First year is a 20% increase, the second year is a 6%, and the third year is a 6%. The MOU also includes an increase in the city's contribution for health, dental, and vision coverage to address the increase in healthcare costs over the last 3 years. I will state here that we only increased Tier 3 for families. Tier 1 and Tier 2 remains the same. It also creates a joint management and labor committee to annually analyze the changes in health care costs and negotiate the city and employees' contribution for health coverage. Other changes were made to the MOU to reflect changes in various state and federal statutes and court decisions over the past 3 years. I will also add here that the red card bonus, we did agree to eliminate that, so we will no longer be paying one the red card bonus. The union members have voted to approve the MOU as presented to the City Council. Our recommendation is that the council authorize the interim city manager execute the attached MOU that you hopefully have. And the fiscal and environmental impact, funded to cover the cost of the MOU is budgeted in the current 2018-2019 city budget, and future costs will be addressed as each subsequent budget is presented and adopted by the city. I did a looked at the financial, and what I have here is this will increase the fire department by $350,979 to their payroll salary budget. So, any questions for me?
Our fire and our police and all of our workers deserve more, but realize that we are a poor city. We're trying to get our financial situation together, and we just have to make sure that in the future we are able to generate more business, in which we are doing that. But I think my projections before are, in 5 years, we need to be doing about 15 million more in business that we're doing annually now. So this is good for the workers, but I hope the workers understand that we're a poor city, and we'll agree to this MOU, but we're not very rich. So that's my comment.
Thank you, sir. Do you have a comment or anything?
Good, thank you.
Don? Anybody from the public?
Mayor McGuire, City Council, DJ Tuig, representing mycalcity.org. First of all, grateful to have such a good group of firemen in the city, as well as the police. And I think it's something that the city can rally around, as having excellent public safety, but I also want to follow up on what Councilman Stump is reminding us of. If we are going to afford services, we have to change. We have to change a lot about how we approach economic policy. We literally have to do everything necessary so we have 10 or 15 million more. We're not doing that. We are not effectively doing what it takes. And so I want to encourage you, appreciate you, number one, for even making the hardest choices that have been made the last couple of years to recognize economic policy must improve. But we've got to do more. It's got to be more urgent. We've talked about Fast Track. It was a great conversation. Those businesses here need to recognize that we're doing everything necessary. And I think they're beginning to see the efforts. Additionally, in addition to Fast Track, we have to have a PR message to the world that we are open for business. California City is a vibrant community, attracting housing, attracting industry to our community. We've got to work hard at that. So I appreciate everything that you're doing to make our city safe. We also have to make it more vibrant, and we have to improve our economic policy. A word of caution: don't waste a good crisis. That parcel tax was a really difficult thing to get past. I think it's imperative that you understand it is the most expensive, most regressive, and most destructive parcel tax on property values in history. So it's imperative that we improve our economic policy. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Al Hudson. I would like to read an excerpt from a statement from the city of Linwood. In order to provide municipal services to the public, the city must recruit and retain qualified staff. After the city provided employees with a moderate 1% cost of living adjustment in 2017, the salary surveys conducted showed nearly every city position benchmark was below market rate. Studies show that the cost of employees turnover ranges from 20 to 40% of their annual salary. With that said, they disagreed with the state auditor, saying that working for a smaller city means an employee should take a smaller salary. So they disagree with that. The city says that we think it's disrespectful to the employee who's performing in the same capacity as an employee who works for a larger city. We believe and support Linwood employees being paid based on the scope of the work the employee performs without regard to the size of the city. I think we need to heed that and compensate our employees and recruit and retain well-qualified staff, because currently it's lacking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Council, when it comes to our first responders, when it comes to our public safety, we're not paying them for what they do. We're paying them for what they're willing to do. And I caught a bit of what Mayor Pro Tem Stump said in regards to cost. We can certainly save cost on a whole bunch of different areas in our town. A $300,000 payout, if there's been a severance payout, a host of different things that we are bleeding the city for. But to protect our first responders and our firefighters, we're referred to as firefighters, but they're not just firefighters, they're firefighter paramedics. And the benefit that we have in our community is pretty amazing. And I would encourage you to make them feel like they're wanted and that they would stay. And we would not constantly see a revolving door with our first responders. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. This is Mary Wadey speaking. Hopefully this is the right section. I was thinking public comments. But in regards to our public servants, I'm an African American. I'm going to have to go there, Chief Hurtado. And Mayor, when will the City of California City Police Department hire African Americans? Our demographics in this city is loaded with African Americans, Hispanics, and even when it wasn't, we still didn't have African American police officers. When are we? I've been here 25 years, so I've seen one. They might be in here maybe a couple of months and gone. So I don't know what the issue is with that situation. But I believe we should start catering more to the African American. I know we need more police officers, but we need to get some African American police officers in here.
Mary, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we're trying to stay on with the,
Okay.
this is fire department. So if you
Same
could.
thing with the fire department too.
If you could set up maybe an off,
Well, it's not
thing.
just with him.
Well, no, but that, and maybe get a hold of Mary and talk to Mary, HR director, and see what we can do.
Okay.
I don't know about the testing. I don't know anything about that.
Mhm.
But I think if you set up a meeting maybe with both chiefs and HR and the CM, we can figure something out.
Well, okay, I can look into that, but the same people have been in this situation before. This has been going on for years already. But I just wanted to, I wanted to let you know that the way it looks for this city right now and what's going around in rumor mill, it's looking very close to a civil lawsuit for Cal City, and I don't want to see that. So we need to make a mission to start hiring African Americans in the police department and in the fire department, because we've had some bad luck in that department when it comes to city hiring African Americans.
Thank you very much for your time. Anybody else? Since there's nobody else, we'll come back up here. Anybody have any other questions, comments? Looking for a motion then.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we got a first and second to authorize the interim city manager to execute the attached MOU. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Johnson?
Yes.
Lissinovich?
Yes.
Paris?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Stump?
Yes.
Mayor McGuire?
Yes. NB3, FY 18-19 budget augmentation. Finance Director Abenes.
Good evening, Mayor,
Hello? No, sorry. Do I start over or?
Yeah, do the.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and community. I apologize for not having the microphone on earlier, but I'm here this evening requesting an increase in Andy Heath's financial services budget for this year. Andy Heath has been assisting with reviewing, updating, teaching, and correcting financial issues that the City of California City's Finance Department has been dealing with. His professional expertise and municipal finance knowledge have improved efficiencies in the finance, utilities, and payroll departments of the city. We currently have 3 major projects in the department that have extenuating deadlines, so I'd like to have his services. We have a need for the 17-18 audit completion. We've got a setup for the 19-20 budget and also setting us up for the 18-19 audit. Once those projects, and there's also additional projects, a payroll model, another personnel model that we would like to discuss and have handy as we proceed with the budget and with the fiscal year. Once we're done with those budgets, with those projects, we should not need his services anymore. But at this point, I am requesting that we increase his budget not to exceed an additional $40,000, with the hourly wage and the travel expenses remaining the same for the year. I'd like to present that.
Do you have any questions, sir? Okay.
No, I guess not.
I think right now it is especially important that we be as thorough and transparent as possible. And if we require extra time with an auditor, an outside auditor, I believe that's absolutely essential. So I'm all for it.
As I am a fiscal conservative, I don't like spending the city's money. However, I've talked to Mr. Ibanez, and if we have to take time to fix everything that we need to fix and make everything straight, we really need to do that. We cannot afford to have our city have any blemishes. And there are a lot of you out there who are fiscal conservatives, but having a passing report card is better than being penny wise and pound foolish. So we need to get this done. We need to get our financial house in order, and by approving this, hopefully that'll do that for us. So again, I ask the rest of the people on the council to be not penny wise and pound foolish. Thank you.
Anybody from the public?
Good evening, Council. Keith Middleton, City Treasurer. I have made comments before that our Finance Department has been lacking in the number of personnel it needed in the management of our money. And we have very, very good employees taking in water payments and all of the other things that finance does. But an accountant and our finance director are 2 of 3 people I've stressed over and over we need to have. I think this extra body for the amount of time that Mr. Ibanez has asked for it is a very worthwhile endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mary Whitty speaking. Andy Heath, is he a new individual to help assist, or how long has he been providing us services?
About 6 months.
About 6 months. Where is he from, or what company does he work with?
He's a consultant, and he's currently has clients with City of Grass Valley, City of Auburn, City of Hot Springs. He's got several clients.
Okay, so he's a consultant.
That is correct.
An independent, his own.
That
He
is
doesn't
correct.
work for a particular company.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, Council, Jeannie O'Laughlin. I'm against this for a couple of reasons. I don't feel like it's the best use of the city funds. When I look at the issues here that Andy Heath is doing, reviewing, updating, teaching, correcting, those are the jobs of the finance director. And what we have here is a symptom that we're trying to throw money at. We need to solve the problem. The problem is that the former city manager, I guess I can call him that, hired people who weren't qualified for their positions, And consequently, it's necessitated the need to bring in consultants because we don't have the qualified people. I know I've also heard, oh, well, when you were finance director, you had so many people. No. Jason and I were the two professionals. 6 months, or I guess it was 9 months in, we hired a budget analyst, which was Cynthia. The current finance director decided he didn't need that position and cut that position. But my first 6 months, Jason and I did 2 audits because the audits were backed up, and the budget with just the 2 of us. That's when you have good, competent people. And I'm not saying that what we have are not competent. It's just they're not competent for the position that they hold here with the city. And so what that's doing is necessitating spending, I don't know how much we've spent already. Somebody told me it was $77,000. I don't really know. If we're having a hard time attracting people, why don't we take that consultant money, add it to the salary, and increase the salary? But what we're doing here, we need to fix the problem. The problem is that we need to have the right people on the right seats in the bus with the right education, the right experience to move us forward, because all this is doing is throwing more money at the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
I will make this brief. I'm very familiar with the finance department. I'm very familiar with Mr. Ibanez and his abilities and the job he has done and how difficult it is. And I know everyone's entitled to their opinions, but unless you're in the inside and you see what actually happens day to day, to denigrate someone's ability is very unattractive. I think that Mr. Ibanez and his staff, and in fact, the entire staff working here in the city and City Hall, everyone's doing a very good job. We're going through a very difficult time. Everyone is stepping up. Things are being found and corrected, and I couldn't be more proud of all of them right now.
Is there anybody else that needs to come up to it? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Council, how much has Andy Heath been paid in the 6 months that he has been consulting?
About 36,000.
Okay. So another 40,000, 76,000, I would plead with you. Do not spend the taxpayers' money on consultant fees. Some of the stuff that's been spent just in the last few months is kind of incredible. And to spend another 40,000 on consultant fees, I would plead with you. Don't spend the citizens' money on consultant fees, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hudson, I believe that this $40,000 comes under the heading of fraud, waste, and abuse. That's exactly what it is. And Councilman Johnson, disappointment. You don't know what the hell you're doing.
Let's keep it. Al, bring it,
Well, it's
bring
the
it down.
truth.
Just bring it down a little bit. Okay, speak factual.
I'll speak factual. Here's an analogy. One of my uncles was an attorney, and he was an advocate at Santa Anita, and he gave me a rule betting the horses. He said, you can't put a quarter horse in a thoroughbred race and expect it to perform. We do not have a finance director. Mr. Ibanez has an education and all of that, but
Mayor,
it is
can I
not in
interrupt you?
accounting.
Hang on for a second.
This is not really appropriate to be publicly criticizing a city employee. I find that inappropriate.
Are you,
If you
is
want
this
to direct
legal
your
advice?
if you would direct your comments.
Legal advice or an opinion?
Well, a little bit of, it's more legal advice for us dealing with this.
Oh, well.
If you'd like to set up a sidebar maybe with the CM and and our finance director, and see if we can, that should be able to get you.
Plain and simply, Mr. Bonis's education is not directed towards the position of finance director. Plain and simple.
Okay.
Mr. Heath has been paid, like we said, does over just over $70,000, and has not gotten
It's been
us out of the finance.
$36,000.
Well, 36 and this 40,000. He wants to pay somebody to do his job. No, absolutely not. If you can't do the job, move out of the way and put somebody else in there that can. It's just that simple. Andy Heath is charging us $500 to come back. That money could be better if you're going to hire somebody to do his job. Well, then hire him locally. We got Palmdale, Lancaster, and Los Angeles that has a wealth of CPA firms that could come in and do the job. We don't need to pay somebody $500 just to ride back and forth between Auburn and Cal City. That's a complete waste. And are we getting them
Time, Mayor.
bucks? The answer is no, because our auditors have not completed our audit. If they had been, if Andy Heath had been doing the job that he was being paid to do, our auditors wouldn't be having the problems that they're having and
Okay,
making the
Al.
requirements on the city.
Al Times,
So
thank you.
Let's go forward, not backward.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
If I could just interject briefly, again, this is just a general comment, if I may.
Sir.
One of the things that I think that as a city, it would be great to be able to move forward would be if we have, and the public is entitled to, they have a First Amendment right to say things, and I'm just hoping that as a city, if you have a criticism about a process or a policy or, you know, even a decision that was made, that's perfectly fine. I just want city employees, you know, they come and work here, and it would be good if we could not have personal attacks of that kind. I think it's important that we actually protect our city employees and let them know that they're valued. You know, let management make decisions, and if management is unable to make decisions about employees, then they're the ones who should be held accountable, not to criticize publicly character or background education. So that's just an encouragement, because we want to encourage quality people to come and work here. And so I'm saying this from a legal perspective, that you create legal liability when we allow that kind of discussion to occur, because you're creating a hostile environment for that employee. So I'm just pointing this out as a general statement to the community, to everyone here listening. Let's of course challenge decisions and policies and actions, but let's try to be respectful towards individuals, especially the hardworking employees of the city.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Yeah, good evening, DJ Tuig, Mayor McGuire, and council. On this subject matter, I do take exception to the fact that open meeting laws are clear. And with much respect, I say to you that elected shall not prohibit public criticism.
Hang on.
Let me finish my statement,
Okay.
please. Under open meeting laws. And I say this with respect. I'd like to have a conversation with the dais that is respectful. And I think I have that. But I also want to share with you, when the policies are criticized for a period of time and they're not corrected, what will you have us do? Say thank you? So let's also do our very best to actually address the issues in finance, address the issues in the budget, address the budget calendar, address the budget with respect to depreciation and GASB 34, address these issues with the employees that we have. If you're not addressing those issues, then you will have public criticism. And it's, in a sense, it's on you. And so just please keep that in mind on the open meeting laws. We're going to assert those at every occasion. Additionally, I've heard comments on occasion, not very often, where an elected official is is derogatory to a public member. And so just keep that in mind, that you are the leaders. We put you at a high standard, and we expect you to do a great job. And you're doing a great job. But just keep that in mind. So let's not bash the public when you get every opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor and council, my name's Ilona Eubank. The first time I came here to a meeting 2.5 years ago, I never heard so much slander, anger, vitriolic comments. It was just horrible. And I think we've come a long way to respecting each other. And as far as what our attorney said, he's right on the money. We can't afford any more lawsuits because of the way we treat our employees. I can't get into any specifics, but we all know how much money we have paid out for those kind of lawsuits. And as much as I agree with Al and also with DJ, he doesn't believe it, but we have some agreement. Nothing that I've read in any of the acts, in any of the conversation about public conversations, allows for attacking a person's education or morals or any of the rest of it. Let's stick to policies. Let's agree to disagree sometimes, but let's not go back to what it was when I came here at my first meeting 2.5 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Okay.
Voice of reason. Maybe voice of reason. I have a question for Mr. Ibanez. If this consultant is, and Mr. Mayor and Council, if this consultant has been here for 6 months, and the way I understand, he's done a good job, and that's what I've heard from other people that have to work with him as a consultant. Maybe what we need to do is to hire somebody and add it to Mr. Ibanez. What's your first name? Diego, right? I'm going to call you Diego. It's easier for me. Maybe we need to add an employee to Mr. Diego's. I mean, $40,000 would get us a good part-time. I know there's some good finance people out there that are semi-retired that live in this city. I think if the feelers were put out, where Dr. Nick, maybe you've got one sitting in your dental chair. You don't know. Put a sign up opposite the chair. Are you a finance person? Tell me. We need you. There are people out there. $40,000 would buy a part-time person that would be employed in the city, and the money would stay in the city. So, and considering what we've already paid him, I'm sorry that Diego let the budget director go, but you also have to cut budgets. You have to cut money somewhere to make the right payments to the right people. But I think we need to consider putting somebody on payroll, not just paying a consultant. I think that, not that it's throwing money away, because the guy's doing a good job. At least that's what I'm told.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
We need to add.
Thank you. Okay. Coming back up here. Anybody have any additional statements, questions, comments?
Just a minor one to Kathy. Kathy, we established policy in the city with the annuitants. These are retired public employees in the PERS system, that they could come and work part-time at the city. And the whole thought process there was that we could potentially find people with experience and knowledge about their particular focus in their jobs to come here and provide those services. The benefits of that policy to the entire city hall operation is going to take time to happen. And I mean, certainly that's our goal, is to have the best people serving that we can. So we have addressed that, at least with that one action. I just want you to realize that we are tackling these problems as they come up. Maybe it seems like a little bit too little or too late, but it's being addressed.
Sir.
As all of you know, several months ago, I said no to this. I think it was around February, or it might have been December. However, right now, we have to get through this audit. We have to get through this audit with no write-ups. And to me, that overrides everything else that we've done. So getting through this audit with no write-ups and getting a budget for next year is my number one concern. Yes, I listened to, I heard what Dr. O'Loughlin said, and she's a PhD in CPA, and Jason was a CPA, so they're superstars. The rest of us are just average people. And so, yes, they were able to do that with 2 people, but that's not what we have before us now. Is at one time our finance department was taken down to 3 people, and we're trying to recover. And everybody is getting in there and lending a hand. And so we need to, again, I'm stressing that we need to get through this audit with no write-ups, and I think Mr. Ibanez is trying to do that. I think Andy Heath is trying to do that, and I think Kenny Cooper is trying to do that. So let us get through the audit with no write-ups and get a budget, and then you can look at other things. But right now, should be our number one concern, to have a error-free audit. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Don't have a heart attack, but for once I completely agree with Mr. Stump. I'm 100% supportive of every word he just said.
Okay, thank you. All right, having that in mind, looking for a motion. Looking for a motion to approve an augmentation of FY 18-19 budget not to exceed an additional $40,000. The hourly wage and travel expenses reimbursement will remain the same. Adjustment to be concurrent, or to be adjustment to the current budget line, item number 10-4141-310. Looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
I second.
We've got a first and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Johnson,
Yes.
Lissinovich,
Yes.
Paris,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Stump, Mayor Pro Tem Stump,
Yes.
Mayor McGuire.
Yes. Motion passes. NB4, proposed ordinance closure, closed session recording. Mr. Bentonhausen.
Yes, Council, before you is a proposed ordinance entirely within your discretion, which would, if approved, amend Section 2-1406 of the code. Currently, that code states that closed session is allowed as authorized under the Brown Act. It also indicates that closed sessions are to be recorded and kept for 5 years, even though this is not the standard practice in most cities, in fact, all cities I deal with. And I'm not really sure the reason why it was implemented here. Normally, it's implemented under state law only in situations where there's been ongoing problem and the court orders it. Part of the problem, and the only reason I'm bringing it up, and we had discussed it briefly, and there was some interest in having a discussion about this, was that similar as occurred, it actually works against what most people think it's doing. The important thing is that the Brown Act authorizes some very limited situations where a council is allowed to go into closed session and have a conversation outside of the public discussion, where the legislature has said, okay, in those very limited circumstances, we think it's actually in the public interest, it protects the public interest, if we keep this conversation away from the public. Because, for instance, in the case of litigation, it's very important that the council be able to have a frank discussion, discuss the idea of how much they might be willing to settle a case for, or whether they want to go to trial. If they're negotiating for property, it's really important that if the council's saying, well, we could pay up to X dollars, that number not get out, because it actually protects public funds if that doesn't get out, because you might be able to get it for cheaper. And so those kinds of discussions need to take place privately. The problem with the taping of it is that it actually opens up an opportunity for that information to get out. And I've come against that a couple different times where it's just like, I realize we tape it and we have been taping it, but there's always this concern that, you know, who's going to get this? What could happen with this information? And it doesn't happen in other cities. And so I guess the point is, why are we doing it when other cities don't do it? We do keep a record of, you know, of the votes and the things that are required to be done. But the goal of closed session, again, is to allow the council in very limited circumstances to have conversations so that they can make decisions, important decisions, and do it in a way where the public's not involved, and they're not supposed to be involved in those decisions, so they can actually protect the public money and act in the best interest of the city. So I'm just bringing this before you to give you the opportunity to discuss it. If adopted, again, there would be 2 readings, and it would, basically the changes that are in here are very simple. I actually added language that clarifies that it's unlawful for any member of the city council or any employee of the city or any other person present during a closed session to disclose to any person the content or substance of any discussion which took place during the closed session, unless the city council has authorized the disclosure of such information by a majority vote. So just added some additional language to try and clarify the need for confidentiality. But with that, it's for your decision and discussion.
Thank you, sir. Any comments?
Yes, I have a comment. I'm not in favor of this. I believe that we should record all these sessions and be placed in a vault or wherever, but so that we can refer back to them. If you have absolutely no record of what transpired other than the vote, there has been issues that have come up where things have been said in closed session and then denied later on. And I believe for transparency reasons that the council needs to have records of all these. I realize there was some issues here recently, but the council can handle them and put them on a zip drive, put them on something that can be locked in a vault, and then if necessary, the council can go back and review them, or if there's a criminal action involved, we have those to bring to the district attorney so that they can see that we are transparent and we're not hiding anything. We have a legitimate record of everything that's gone on in closed session. And that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody?
And then another shocker, I'm completely on board with Mr. Paris in this regard. I completely agree with his rationalization and his opinion.
2-0. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
You know, after listening to Councilman Paris and really thinking about it, I understand what our city attorney is saying. However, we really need to be transparent. My main concern is securing the media. And what we've done lately is we've had the city attorney secure the media for us. It was in his possession. And if we do go along with Councilman Paris and Councilman Johnson, I think that some type of way of securing it would be the ideal thing. I believe in transparency, and again, having my second heart attack up here tonight, but I think that we need to come up with a way to secure the media. I would be in favor of, and sorry that we had you go through the work to do this, City Attorney, but my conscience leads me to be transparent to all of you out there, but come up with a way that we can be absolutely sure that it's secured, maybe 2 keys or some type of, in the military we use XO7 or XO8 or XO9 safes where you could have 2 combinations, but it could be secured that nobody can get access to it. And again, as the city attorney pointed out, that is the downside of it, where unauthorized people get access to it and are able to see what we talked about in closed session. So again, I would be for it, against it, in agreeing with these two, if we have a way to secure the media. Thank you.
Anybody from the public?
Al, it's in the interest of transparency. This is totally unnecessary. This is not military top secrets. It need to be confidential, top security, crypto, and none of that. This is public business. And if an investigative agency needs to review what is being said and done in closed session, that should be there. Securing the media, that's essentially a no-brainer. What I mean by that is you could use an external hard drive and record everything there, on there, and then lock it in a safe. And you can put a code on the external for limited access. And it sounds like Mr. Bedhausen is trying to provide a vehicle to cover things up, not let investigative agencies review what's being said in closed session. I know it sounds like a criticism, but so be it. That's what it sounds like to me. And I think that a lot of the public would agree to that. The public would agree to the necessity of transparency within our government. So, no, we don't need to have that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening again, DJ Tuig. I'll be really brief. I really agree with each of the comments being made. And the last thought that I had is, let's not govern in a vacuum. There's too many conditions that are too important that may need an examination at a future date. We know that historically the minutes are not really sufficient anyway. And so if there's some type of a case that we have to go back and take a look at it, if those recordings are not available, I wouldn't know what you'd do. So yeah, maybe other jurisdictions aren't recording. And I heard the city attorney say, I took interest in those of the cities that he represents. It just caught my attention. I think everything in favor of transparency in this city will help us build the trust that we need moving forward. And then my last thought was, if there's been an infraction, that's the issue. And if there has been an infraction, I expect there'll be accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Since nobody else is coming back up here, what's the motion? What the council wants to do?
Can I just address Vice Mayor Stump?
Yes.
I was thinking about bringing this under council agenda, but this is actually the same thing with a slightly different twist. We talk about transparency, but we're talking about a closed session item where we aren't supposed to disclose what we talked about. In many cases, we walk out of closed session and the public has no clue what we even talked about. How do you give transparency to that? And the answer is you don't, but the issue that I was trying to go through my mind is that every time we come up here and sit as a council and make a decision, we are vulnerable to a legal action. Plain and simple. Every single thing we do. The public can't know everything about why we make the decisions we do because employee relations, lawsuits from outside groups or whatever, but transparency has nothing to do with any of it. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing. I mean, I actually agree with you, but it's just the idea that I keep hearing about this transparency stuff, and I don't know how to give it to the public when we're in our meetings. The best we can do is try to help the community understand why we think the way we do, or ask questions that helps you to understand what the issues are. And for that, I've been negligent. I was better in previous administrations. But the idea here is, again, I'm just coming to that idea of transparency. We use that moniker has to be there in everything we talk about, and I don't know that that's the truth. I think the thing is that we have to think carefully about what the community wants from us and also what we have to give them in terms of support to understand that why we're doing what we're doing. And I think that's maybe more we have to define our jobs so that then we don't need that guy over there doing his job. And that maybe that's the more important thing. And we do need records. So anyway, I'm just a rant. I'm sorry.
No. What you have is a good point, and what I say to that is, again, I've worked for the federal government for about 40 years, so a little over 40 years. Yeah, shame on me. I'm on the government dole. But the thing is, we have to maintain records, and I think what Councilman Paris was saying and Councilman Johnson, Dr. Lucinovich, is that we, even though our closed session is not for the public, there are times where things have gone on in closed session, and in case we get into litigation later on, which the city attorney pointed out, those records are maintained. And so that's all they're saying, just maintaining of what went on so that if we are ever questioned, we can say, no, we discussed this, and this is what happened, and this is why we came to this solution. And again, that would only be in times where there's litigation or so on. And I think Councilman Paris put a good answer on that earlier.
Okay. So are we looking for a motion of any type?
Nope.
Nope.
Table it?
Nope. Nope.
Just a motion of no?
Failed for motion.
Yeah, I was going to say, just
Failed
a
for
motion to table the item.
There's no motion, there's motion. Go on.
No
Let's go on
motion.
with
No
other
action.
stuff.
No action.
Yay.
Okay. Public business from the floor. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the city council on any matter not on this agenda and over which the city council has jurisdiction. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Everybody be nice. Please be nice, be polite, be courteous. And it's a two-way street.
Good evening, Mary Wadey speaking. My issue again has to do with the demographics here in California City and the non-employment of African Americans within the city government, permanent party. Over the last 3 years, Cal City has had its issues with having African Americans employed as permanent party. The African American lady that was here, I think a budget director, she's no longer here for whatever reason. There was a young lady that worked the front desk who's been a permanent employee of California City, but was harassed and intimidated and coerced to leave. There was, of course, the new fire chief, and then there was the gentleman that's been here for 30 years and was being harassed and bullied and intimidated, trying to keep from him receiving his CalPERS retirement. This doesn't look good at all. We don't have any permanent African-American employees in the government, or I'll say we might have maybe 0.1, you know, or 0.01 or 0.02. Might be one somewhere around here. But we don't even meet 10 or 20% of this California city's government permanent employees. They rotated a number of African Americans through the Kern County Work Source program, which is like about 6 months, and it only uses the benefit, the tax benefits, and then they're gone. You don't keep them. You don't do the community any justice by doing that. There was I was here Thursday, and I talked to Mr. Diego about it, because I sat here and watched an employee at the window where you pay your water bill, sit there and harass, intimidate, and bully a customer, African-American customer, because she was asking to speak to a supervisor. She literally kept refusing to let her speak to a supervisor. Customer service is what you're supposed to be, service to the people. But she stood there, she sat there and just ignored the request of the customer.
Mary, if you can hang on, if you would direct that to the interim city manager.
I sure will.
And
I'll make an appointment with you. Okay.
And so that can be then discussed, and we're not discussing it out in public.
Well, I haven't said any
It
names.
doesn't
I'm just
matter.
saying.
The problem is, if the incident occurred, let's keep it low-keyed and direct her, and you can tell her what you witnessed and what you saw.
Okay. And then outside of that, well, to go along with that, like I said, the demographics of this community, it's a lot of African American here, a lot of Hispanics, and we don't have it in the police department, we don't have it in the fire department, and it's really coming up on an issue where people are talking about bringing in representatives
Time,
from
Mayor.
the ACLU and the EEO, the American Civil Liberties Union, and also the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. We really need to take a look at the city's government practices in hiring African Americans, and we really need to have an equity audit. That's what the school district is going through right now, and we need to have that for the city also.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, Council, a couple questions. Ron Smith, California City. What was the total cost of the remodel for the building and planning area? Second question, what was the total cost for the mayor's office remodel? And why was this not put out to bid? Thirdly, public comment needs to be returned at the beginning of the meeting. And what occurred tonight with a grieving mom really gives all the more reason. Everyone here was very respectful. We did not jump up and say, we should have the same right. We understood it was a grieving mom. I'm glad, Mr. Mayor, that you gave her the opportunity to speak. Thank you for that. I don't know if there's anybody else in this room that has been through what she's been through. There may be, but I don't believe so. And but I think that public comment needs to be removed to the beginning of the meeting for such things as that. I don't know if you can say this or not. We're told that our former city manager, as far as 11:59 tonight, is going to resign. Was a severance paid? And should the citizens know if a severance was paid, what the package was paid? We spent a lot of money. If we look at our fire engine right now that's going around, I don't know what level that is down, but we desperately need a fire engine, and we're putting out tens of thousands, yea, hundreds of thousands of dollars in stuff that shouldn't have been spent whatsoever. When we talk about consultants, HDL was paid, if I'm not mistaken, over $900,000 that was brought in back when cannabis was MMJ, and then they were basically said they did a lousy job and were paid nearly $1 million. And a lot of money has been wasted in this city on bringing in consultants. But as far as the questions, the cost of the remodel before of the building planning area was supposed to be $24,000. I think citizens ought to know what was paid on that, how much the mayor's office remodel was, and why this was not put out to bid. I think that those are legitimate questions to ask, sir.
Okay. And if get those answers to him in writing, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Lynn.
Thank you, sir.
Perhaps that's also a subject for us to discuss, and that is authorization for projects. What is the threshold for taking something out to be bid for a project? That would be kind of an interesting conversation for us to have.
And city manager, if you could get that information to the council members also, it'd be good. Thank you.
I could just briefly respond to that because we can't get into a conversation, but generally under state law, and the council can set the limits, and that will be for a discussion later, but usually there's a limit, like you set a dollar limit, and then over that amount you publicly bid it, but when it falls within that lower threshold, there's sometimes discretion to allow, say, city workers to do projects. So I've seen that done where you'll find that it's less expensive to say bring a city worker in and do a new wall or something like that. So I'm just pointing out that it is common up to a certain point to have city workers do something, or you might bid it out. So there's some discretion there. Otherwise, everything would come to the council, and maybe that's what you want to do, and you have that right. But just throwing that out there.
Yes, sir.
Al, first I'd like to clarify something. It's been brought to my attention that it sounded like I was criticizing City Manager Lynn's academic qualifications. That's not true. I was saying that they are above reproach. That's
Thank
what
you,
I'd like
sir.
to clear up first. The second matter is I'd like to talk about Government Code 54348. That is a limit on utility payment, utility late payments. It's a maximum of 10%. There is a study that I'm going to read from. It's determining the cost effectiveness of utility late payment charges. This was a study done by a public finance and general economics firm. It's like this: households who experience an ongoing mismatch between their utility cycle billing date and their receipt of public assistance comprise a second group of habitual late payers. A household in this group might, for example, receive a utility bill due on the 15th of each month, but not receive their Social Security until the 20th. The consequence of that is perpetual late payments. The city, in its rate study in 2014, there was a 5-year projection of late fees in the amount of $530,812. The actual amount collected in late fees is $1,013,300. There needs to be a moratorium put on late fees for people that are receiving government checks, because we don't need to be punishing them for activities or payments of their income that they have absolutely no control over. And I think that that is what this council needs. And I think that after a submission by the public of the late fees that they have been forced to pay, there should be refunds, because that is absolutely obscene. The California Supreme Court has criticized the collection and payment
Time, Mayor.
fees by municipalities. This is a side issue. When the public is speaking from the podium and their time is up, you might ask the city clerk to signal you, not interrupt us.
Well, no, all she's doing is telling me, because I'm looking at
I understand
you.
she's telling you, but it's interrupting what we're talking.
Yeah, she's yelling that to me.
Yeah. Okay, but that's what I would encourage. I would encourage a moratorium on late fees on people receiving Social Security and disability. And am I correct on that government code section, Counselor?
Go ahead, sir.
That's 54348.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Hudson?
That's 10%.
I think, and I'm speculating a little bit, but from my recollection, I do think that most cities, what they do is they say due on the 1st, but then they don't impose the late fee until, maybe middle of the month or something like that. So.
Something we can look at.
If not paid, yeah, so it's something we can examine.
Definitely look at.
Okay, because people that are receiving government checks, they don't receive it the same date of every
They have no
month.
control.
There's a fluctuation, and with me personally, there's 8 months out of the year that I'm paid beyond the due date of the utility bills. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would like to agendize this, put it on the next agenda to talk about that, and if we could get information from the city on why such an exorbitant late fee that we charge. I don't know what it is because my wife pays mine. If it were me, I'd probably I'd be paying every month late, but.
We don't need to know why. If the law specifically says that it can't be more than 10% of the bill, then we need to change that. We don't need to know why.
Yeah, I was told it's $21.50, so that's way more. That's like my rough calculation, about 38%, close to 40%, and it's not 10%. So if we could look into that, and then also look into possibly, I know we can't, Mr. Hudson would like people receiving government checks, but I don't think we can legally discriminate between the people of the city, if it's government or non-government or what. But if there's any way possible where people can maybe select the date that they want their payment due, and if they select a date they want it due, they can maybe get a 10-day grace from that selection because that way they know when their check might come in, either government or non-government. So if we could put this on the agenda and 2 weeks from now discuss this, and the city manager can have some data for us, and then we can make a good decision on which way to proceed after that.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor McGuire and council. On the subject of Government Code 54348, also keep in mind that it limits the amount of a late fee you can charge for an unpaid late fee. It's not just limiting the late fee, but if there's been a dispute, while there's a valid dispute, there's limits there. Additionally, if there's a carryover late fee that's not paid, Government 54348, Council Member Stump, Mayor Pro Tem Stump, I've had this conversation with you before. I cautioned you a couple of years ago that it was unlawful, and I'm grateful that 2 years later you're putting it back on the agenda. There are limitations in how you charge fees, and the city has been in violation of those limitations under Government Code 54348. So we're glad to see that get cleared up. There's also other areas that the city's exposed, and I'd like to see further discussion on the water standby fee as it relates to those properties that are being charged where there is not transmission of water line, there is not construction or reconstruction of, quote, the, end quote, water line to the subject property. These are important matters that have been addressed at this council. It would be wonderful if we set some priorities and took on some of these major issues and being compliant and stop hosing the ratepayers and stop hosing the taxpayers and improve upon our economic policies. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Mayor and Council, Ilona Eubank. I just have a quick question. Who is in charge now of what Mr. Platt is usually in charge of? Because as part of the follow-through on the graffiti, et cetera, we need to know.
Why don't you get a hold of the interim CM,
Okay.
and the arrangements can happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor and Council, Jeannie O'Laughlin. So when I was finance director, I saw a lot of late payments and talked to a lot of people, and there were some very legitimate circumstances, and I personally paid the water bill for people out of my own pocket on many occasions. Is there any way of, I know there's confidentiality and privacy, but is there a way at all that if we set up some kind of a group that wants to help, that we could know about, some of these people that maybe need, I guess the city can't do it, but
No.
is there a way that somehow we could have a group that would raise money and the city could refer us to them or them to us or whatever to help out in some of these cases?
I know the city cannot, is not allowed to give any of that information out due to privacy. You may, just a suggestion, you may want to check with maybe some of the local churches and see if there's somebody that has something, and maybe get people throughout the churches and stuff where you guys can set up a meeting and then bring that up. And then if somebody can't pay it, they can come to you guys, and then somebody walks in and says, we're paying this amount of money on this account number. But we can't give that information.
Yeah, I realize that, but I didn't know if there was some kind of a referral methodology or something that you
I
could
don't
say.
know of any.
The city itself couldn't disclose
Yeah, we
the
just said
private
that.
information. However, if they had a program and gave us some material and someone came forward and was having trouble paying, we could give them the pamphlet and have them contact
Exactly,
them.
yeah.
So if they were reaching out to them,
Okay, then-
you just basically say, there is this program that
Okay.
might be able to help you if you want to reach out to them.
Thank you.
And Dr. O'Laughlin, I'd like to talk to you about that, maybe help, volunteer time or whatever. And if we had a trifold in the public area out there, something like that to help people.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing nobody else, coming up here, council agenda. This portion of the meeting is reserved for council members to present information, announcements, and items that have come to their attention. The Brown Act precludes council, staff, or public discussion. Short staff responses are appropriate. The council will take no formal action. A council member may request the city clerk to calendar an item for consideration at a future meeting or refer the item to staff.
Yes, sir.
Go.
I defer to
Okay.
Councilwoman.
Nothing? Okay.
Thank you. We've heard over and over again about this $300,000 payment that was put out. I would like it to be put on the agenda so that this new council can discuss. We were told 3 separate times that it was coming out of the general fund budget, and then all of a sudden it shows up in the police budget. Regardless of the reason, I feel this council ought to agendize it, discuss it, and we should make the decision on where the money comes out of, not staff.
Okay.
So I would like that agendized for next council meeting as a discussion, so that we can decide, this council can decide where the money is coming from.
But a question for you, Councilman Paris,
Sure.
and maybe the city attorney can answer this. Do you think that this would be better in closed session or open session? Because of possible
Yeah,
ramifications.
We just want to be careful about how that discussion takes place. I think if the sole issue is where are we going to take the money from, and that's it, not the basis of the settlement or other aspects of it, then that could happen in open session. It's just merely, I think this should come from this pot. There is some aspects to that, though, that might warrant closed session discussion in terms of why it comes out of one fund or another.
So,
I guess
Well,
I
we
leave
can-
that to your discretion. as
Can
to
we
what-
agendize it for both, go into closed session, and if we agree that the public can hear it, put it on open session? You know, I feel that the public was misled. I feel the council was misled when we were told 3 separate occasions when we directed it to our city manager, where is this money coming from? And we were told it was coming out of the general fund. And now, you know, well, not now, but then we found out at a later date that it came out of the police fund. Regardless of what the reason was it came out of the police fund, I feel this council should have a vote or input as to what, when, where, and why this took place. Just the difference between we were told the general fund and the police
That
fund.
discussion sounds like a closed session discussion.
Okay.
Anything else, sir?
Nope.
Sir? Oh, before before you continue on, did anybody have any AB 1, 2, 3, 4s? None? None? Sir?
I was privileged to be invited to the AFA reception at on base. It was good for me to get back on base. I talked to several of the commanders on base, and I realized how old I was after talking to them. But very interesting. It was very good. We represented Cal City good. In the future, if we go to something like that, I would like to possibly have something that we could present to them. Representative Sharon Grove, her office had something. Tom Lackey's office did. All of them had a little presentation to give to the people who are going away, and maybe we could do that next time. So I enjoyed that, and again, it was good. And the only person up here will understand this, but the mayor will understand it. I got re-blued, so it was good.
All right. Excellent. Yes, ma'am.
It's been a very hard couple of weeks for everyone. Not everyone is in City Hall, and not everyone sees what the city staff is doing every single day. And I just want to reiterate to all of the staff, every one of them, you're all doing a great job. And I greatly appreciate the way things are continuing to roll ahead. And I just couldn't be more pleased with the people that we have in place at the moment. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have one more thing from Air Quality Control Board. Our last meeting, they gave out $150,000 to different cities to repave their roads due to dust control. There's $53,000 still available that this city has access to.
Then grab it.
I was asked to bring it before the council and before the city manager to where we can find, it has to be used for dust control, but, you know, $50,000 will pave.
We got the Mindenboro thing going.
So I would like to present that and put it together, and I can let you know when our next Air Quality Control Board meeting is coming up, and I can present it to them at that time.
Cool.
So
Thank you, sir.
that is available.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
We need to agendize it, but also, what do we need to do to get that money? Is it just available, or do we have to apply for it?
We have to apply for it. We have to put together which road we want and why we want it. Right, a specific project. And, but it is available, and I think we ought to access those monies.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. The only thing, anything else, ma'am? The only thing I got to all the city employees and to our citizens, it's been a very tough couple weeks, and everybody's been doing a great job for working for the city. Just keep doing what you're doing, and everything is just going absolutely great. I have a phone number and a name. There's an individual that's been complaining about trash that's coming from Victor Plaza into his yard and into his neighbor's yard. And from what I gather, I haven't talked to anybody else. He's been complaining, but there's been no action. So I'm just going to pass that on to you. To everybody else, thank you so very, very much for being understanding. And looking for a motion. Got first, looking for a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much. Have a very good night.